So, this is a brief overview of the book of Revelation. All throughout the Old Testament, from Genesis all the way to Malachi, we are given bits and pieces of prophetic visions and dreams of the second coming of Jesus. And then in the New Testament, we're given new layers to those Old Testament prophecies. But then when we get to the book of Revelation, John, the one disciple who went to the cross with Jesus, was put into isolation on the island of Patmos. And Jesus came to him and gave him the revelation of the second coming, and he put the whole thing together for us. Okay? God gave this revelation to Jesus, and Jesus gave it to John. This is what we call I guess you could say a synopsis of the Bible. You could call it Cliff's Notes. I know somebody once called it a treasure hunt. And that's basically what this is. Alright? If you want to know what all the symbolism means in this book, you have to let the Bible define itself. So there's two main ways you can study the book of Revelation. You can either go through the Bible and study the Bible, and then when you get to the book of Revelation, you'll know what most of this stuff means. Or you can study the book of Revelation and then go back through the Bible to figure out what all this stuff means. But here is just a brief synopsis, okay? Jesus appears to John. He gives him this revelation of the second coming, or the apocalypse, and he's told to write it down. Now, Jesus starts off by talking about these 7 churches. These are called the 7 sister churches, okay? This is a reference back to the 7 sisters that Moses met at the well when he killed the Egyptian and escaped from Egypt, okay? And notice how I'm talking about escaping. That's going to be important later, okay? It's also a reference to Noah, who got on the ark with 7 other people. But Jesus goes through these 7 different types of churches. Now, the reason why they're called 7 sister churches is because there are 7 stars in the heaven. There's a constellation called the Pleiades. And those 7 stars are referenced here when Jesus talks about how he's holding their star in his hand. All right, for each church. These churches are located in Asia Minor, and the geographical layout of these churches is somewhat identical to the Pleiades itself, or Pleiades, however you want to say it. I'll insert a picture right here. So after he talks about these 7 churches, we get over here to chapter 4. John is standing in the throne room of heaven. Okay, so John has been taken up to heaven, and he's being shown what's going to happen during the apocalypse. Now we get over here, and he talks about the scroll. This scroll that Jesus is holding is the title deed to the earth, and he talks about the seals that have to be broken off of that scroll, okay? And he talks about the elders who are going to be there to witness Jesus opening this scroll. And he talks about people standing around the throne watching Jesus open this scroll. Now we get over here, and it starts talking about the first set of judgments. There are 7 seals on that scroll that have to be opened. Once the elders are taken off the earth and they are in heaven, they have the signet rings that match these 7 scrolls. Once they are there, legally, by Jewish law, Jesus can open that scroll because the 7 signet rings that match the wax seal on that scroll will be in heaven with him. So, as he opens the seals, there will be another judgment released upon the earth. Then we get over here, After the sixth seal, Jesus is going to actually seal the 144,000. This is the Jewish bride, and I'll talk about them later. But he's going to seal 12,000 Jews from each of the 12 tribes. And that seal it's referring to the Holy Spirit. Okay? And then we get over here and we see another great multitude in heaven. I'll talk about who those are later. Excuse me. All right. They come up at a later time. We get down here to the seventh seal, and then it goes silent for a while. After things go silent for a while, then a little bit later on, we're going to hear 7 trumpets being blown. These are 7 more sets of judgments that are coming upon the earth. And you can read what those judgments are here. We get down here to chapter 9. He's talking about the 5th trumpet, the locust coming out of the bottomless pit. These are when the fallen angels get released. Is during the 5th trumpet, and it's a parallel to the days of Noah. Just like the waters burst forth from the earth, these fallen angels are going to come forth from the earth. Okay? And it talks about what they're going to do to mankind once they're on the earth. Then we get over here to chapter 10, and y'all excuse my dirty Bible, please. I've had this Bible forever and a day. We get over here to chapter 10, and John sees this angel with a little book. And this book has 7 thunder judgments in it. But John is told not to write those down. So we don't know what those are. Those are going to be announced by the 2 witnesses when they get here. And we only have a brief explanation of those 7 thunders. So that's the 3rd set of judgments. The seals, the trumpets, the thunders. Now, John starts talking about these 2 witnesses and what the 2 witnesses are going to do. They're going to prophesy for 1,260 days. And then when Satan comes on the scene about midway through the 7 years, the 2 witnesses are going to be killed. And then a few days later, they're going to resurrect in front of the whole world for the whole world to see it. Okay? Then we get down here to chapter 12. This is also mid-trib. This woman, these are the Jews that were not sealed in the beginning. They're going to flee mid-trib. They're going to realize that Satan is not their Messiah that they thought he was. They're going to flee from him. They're going to run from him. So not only is he referencing Israel when he talks about the woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, he's also referencing, Mary, the Virgin Mary who gave birth to Jesus. And he's also referencing the constellation that people call Virgo. There's going to be a point in time where Virgo, up in the heavens, is going to be clothed with the sun. The moon will be under her feet, and she will have a garland of 12 stars. Now, this constellation pattern happens every single year around September-ish, late September-ish. Okay? So he talks about Satan who drew the 3rd of stars from heaven. Those are the fallen angels. And how they're going to go after the people who flee, the Jews who flee. But God said he's going to protect them in the wilderness, just like he protected the Israelites when they left Egypt. Okay? So it goes on to talk about how Satan's going to persecute this woman and he's going to start killing people. Excuse me. And then chapter 13, we have another beast that rises up. Now, this is where he starts talking about the one world government. He's talking about the one world order. Okay, then we get over here, this beast from the earth. He starts talking about this false prophet. This is the Catholic Pope. Okay, he had 2 horns like a lamb, but he spoke like a dragon. This is what we call a wolf in sheep's clothing, okay? He's just talking about this fake Christianity stuff, this fake religious Christianity. Then we get down here and we see Jesus the Lamb with the 144,000. So now Jesus has redeemed the 144,000 that he sealed at the beginning of the book, otherwise known as the Jewish bride. Okay, then we get over here and he starts talking about the three angels that are going to come to the world, and they're going to pronounce judgment on the world because the two witnesses are now gone. So God is still going to be warning people with these three angels after the two witnesses are gone. And one of the proclamations they make is that Babylon is going to fall. Now, Babylon in this particular book represents the entire world. Okay, when it talks about how Babylon sits on 7 hills, and it describes Babylon as sitting on 7 hills, it's talking about the 7 continents. Yes, we know the Vatican sits on 7 hills, but there are several places around the world where you could apply that scripture. Okay? Excuse me. So now we not only have the one world order, the one world government, we now have the one world religious order that's going to require people to submit to it in order to buy or sell or to eat. And if you don't submit to it, you will be martyred for the sake of the gospel. Okay? Then it goes on and talks about Jesus coming back to reap another harvest. So here's the third group Jesus is coming to get. He came to get his Gentile bride, represented by John, when John went to heaven. He sealed his 144,000. He came back to get them. Now he's coming to get his third group. Okay? He's coming to reap the third harvest and the fourth harvest. And I'll explain all these in detail later, but I'm just giving you an overview of what's happening here. Then we get here. Chapter 15, and John sees all of these people in heaven, this massive number that no man could count, and he sees these people that came out of the Great Tribulation and these people who were saved by Jesus. Then he goes into the fourth set of judgments. We've seen the seal judgments, the trumpet judgments, the thunder judgments. These are what we call the vial judgments or the bowl judgments. These are the last ones. These are the judgments that are going to make the earth completely inhabitable. Okay? There's going to be no food. There's going to be no water. No nothing. There's not going to be any way to survive. All the animals are going to die. Even the people are going to be too sick for anybody to cannibalize. There's just not going to be anything to eat or drink. The wicked are going to die. Period. Okay? So we go through these 7 bowls. The earth is now uninhabitable, And we get over here, and he starts talking about how the beast is going to turn on the scarlet woman. If you've ever heard the story of Europa, that's where the story came from, was the book of Revelation, okay? You have this woman who's riding the beast. So you have the Roman Catholic Church riding off the back of the one world government. But the government's going to turn on the Catholic Church, okay? And they're going to destroy each other, basically, is what it amounts to, all right? And you see how the world's going to be divided up into 10 10 different, I guess you could say colonies or groups. They're going to divide it up into 10. The word I'm looking for is territories. They're going to divide it up into 10 territories. And then we come on down. And he keeps talking about how this beast is going to have massive authority. And then he comes over here in 18 and talks about the fall of Great Babylon. And if you read Babylon, it's basically describing the wicked world that people are now living in. And it's talking about the Roman Catholic Church. It's talking about America. It's talking about Europe. Period. It's talking about communism. It's talking about all the wicked places on the earth and how the earth is going to fall. Okay? Then we come over here, the finality of Babylon's fall, chapter 19. It talks about how the people in heaven are going to rejoice because of the vengeance God has taken on the wicked. And then we see Jesus coming back on a white horse. So now Jesus is coming back, and he's going to defend those people who fled at mid-trib that were being protected by God in the wilderness. Satan's going to go after them, and Jesus is going to return. He's going to defend them. It talks about how Jesus' garment's going to be stained with blood because he's going to trample the grapes of wrath himself, the winepress. And we get over here, and it talks about how Satan is going to be bound up in chains for 1,000 years. How the false prophet is going to go with him. The world government's going to be destroyed. This is what the Jews wanted him to do the first time, and he didn't do it, and that's why they rejected him. Okay? And now we see the great white throne judgment. And then we see the New Jerusalem. This is that heavenly city coming down out of the sky. And he goes into the description of the new heavenly city coming down out of the sky, where those of us who rule and reign with Jesus are going to be living. Others are going to be living on the earth itself. And it talks more about the New Jerusalem. Jesus talks about how we need to be overcomers so that we can enter the kingdom. And then he gives a very strict warning that no one is to add or take away from the words of this book of Revelation. No one, no one, no one. And that's the basics of the book of Revelation. Now, let's go more into detail with the timeline.